All right, Rich, welcome. We are next video in our series here of going through guys that have passed our expert level, our level 6 and level 7 ACE courses and exams. And we're going to take a minute to kind of walk through, let everybody kind of know, what your background is, where you come from, what your career's been like, how'd you get into Arista, what do you do at Arista, what are some of your thoughts on the exam? Maybe we'll have a little bit of conversation about, what are our thoughts since we work together. And this is kind of our baby that we created.
It is.
So we'll just kind of walk through that a little bit. The goal is just to let people know that this is just real people going through a real exam. We haven't made it unapproachable. We've made it tough, but we didn't make it unrealistic rather. So, we want to kind of encourage people to think they're ready for that, to be able to go. But this is our chance to kind of let people know that it is doable. It is possible. We did pick our top, kind of 100 engineers across Arista. And we did this systematically because we think we're going to put out something that's going to define people's careers in the future. Then we should lead from the front, and we should all kind of drink our own Kool-Aid as well. So if our top engineers couldn't get through it successfully, then, we would adjust the program. So that's kind of what we've went through. And now I'm just kind of going through, as many of those people as I can so that we can kind of tell the story. So I'll start out with, kind of introduce yourself. What's your career been like? Tell us about yourself type thing.
Okay, so I started off actually working in one of those computer shops. So I was breaking up PCs, putting them back together again, trying to figure out how some pretty kid had broken it or how some family had destroyed their only desktop PC in the entire house. And then I went into wireless engineering. I spent a lot of time stood on very, very tall buildings and very, very high masts, waving antennas in the air, trying to find a guy who was 20 kilometers away without being able to see exactly where they were. Back before GPS was really that popular, and we didn't have anything fancy on our phone to tell where everyone was. But that kind of led from outdoor Wi-Fi to indoor Wi-Fi to switching to routing as customers wanted everything. Now they wanted us to come in and do the Wi-Fi, but then they wanted us to come in and do their switching, and we had to come into their routing and their ADSL and their DSL and everything else in between. So over the years, I slowly moved from outdoor to indoor, and then started picking up companies like Juniper, and back when it was in Terrasys and Cabletron, and then eventually Arista. Became an instructor for all of those at various points in my career, and then eventually moved from a training partner in London over to Arista, and I've been here for the last 5 years now, quite happily within the training team. My role here is to handle everything that involves labs and infrastructure, and anything that a customer touches as far as our equipment goes within the training team crosses my desk at some point in its lifestyle. Whether that's the infrastructure that they work on, whether it's the lab guides that they're reading, whether it's how we deploy things, how we build things, how we manage things, all of that kind of comes through a small little team inside the bigger training team where we handle everything regarding that sort of stuff.
Yeah, talk a little bit since you're here and you kind of, all of our labs that we've built in all of our courses, all the exams that we built, all of our exams are hands-on lab-based. So we have no kind of multiple choice. So everything is lab-based. Between those, like how many, round numbers off the top of your head, whatever you remember, like how many instances of Arista switches and CloudVision do we deploy on, a given week or month or whatever?
I don't think we can count anymore. We were at several hundred at one point. So I think currently we've got about 500 instances deployed of CVP at this point in time. And we average about that roughly every week, give or take. But we have a kind of rolling stock of this. Over the course of the last couple of years, I think we've deployed tens of thousands of switches, somewhere probably near 100,000 instances of switches over that. And then, again, several thousand copies of CVP, as well as, multiple iterations of each topology that we have. And like you say, all of our exams are hands-on, so people touch our equipment at every stage of the training lifecycle. From the moment they come through a class, to the academy, to doing their labs there, all the way through to their final kind of like pied de resistance at the end, where they go and do their exams, and they're still touching the kit at that point.
And that's very, I think it's one of the coolest things that I like to brag about what we do.
I didn't catch that. Could you try again?
You went there. I think Siri decided to start speaking, and I missed.
So I was going to say, like, you know, one of the things I love to brag about and what we do is that everything is so lab based, you know, and that's really kind of the approach we took. And it's not that we don't teach the theory and we don't teach people, you know, things like EVPN. It's tough to understand. Actually, I generally tell people it's harder to understand the concepts around EVPN than it is to do the configuration sometimes. But same thing with programming and automation and, you know, building these CI pipelines and stuff like this. You know, what a lot of people don't realize is that we drink our own Kool-Aid, if you would. We use those same strategies in what we do. You know, we have our own CI pipelines. We have our own things where we're pushing this stuff out. And we're constantly adjusting, you know, so it's not that, you know, just that we have, you know, a lot of labs. We do a lot of extra labs in the courses. We let people have a lot of extra lab time because we're really trying to push that people can get the confidence and the proficiency in this stuff. But, you know, we've done some pretty cool things with the labs. And I say we, you know, mostly being you, this is stuff that was your kind of brainchild. And, you know, how we've gone through the exams, how we can give different copies of the exams, no matter what. We have so much modularity in what we do where we can almost defeat a lot of the normal cheating and people trying to take shortcuts. And that was important to us because, you know, you and I have had this conversation 1,000 times. At the end of the day, we don't want anybody out there certified that we wouldn't put our name behind them. You know, we can never speak to their personalities, but we can speak to their skill levels if we do this program the right way. And I think we're both kind of really proud of that.
Absolutely. And I think when we first sat down to discuss how we could move away from the, you know, multiple choice scenarios that plague the training industry, we sat down and said, well, what can we do? How can we move forward with a practical exam across the entire range, not just at the expert level, but right down at, you know, the very introduction level? How can we do that and still maintain the quality of the individual, the integrity of the exam, and actually have it scalable? You know, we could do it for one person, but how do we scale it for all of the people that want to come through? And I think where we've got to today, you know, having gone through all 5 levels of the original ACE classes, them all being practical exams, and being able to scale it to however many more people want to come, having both Wednesdays and Saturday exam sessions. We learned so much from that when we came to doing the expert level 6 and 7, we could just take everything that we'd learned from proctored sessions to how we do the fair grading to how we don't do any tricks, and take all that and adapt it to moving to that next stage and actually create an entire program where no one is having to memorize the ABCs of their exams and no one can download.
Yeah, you know, and I think it's brilliant. It's definitely something I'm very proud of on our team is that, you know, we have an expert level exam. I'll go so far as I don't have a problem saying I think it's the most difficult in the industry. And I've been around many of the other ones for many, many years, helped build them, help teach them, help launch boot camps around them, things like this. And I definitely think we have, you know, the hardest exam out there because we're using real technologies. We're making real world scenarios. It's not hard because we've tried to design it hard. It's hard because we got hard designs, which our customers are doing every day. And we didn't shy away from testing them in real world. And I think it's neat to be able to tell people that, yes, we have some very, very high tech methods of grading and going through and looking at these because, you know, some of these exams are just pages on pages of config. But, you know, that wasn't good enough for the two of us, you know, and the other people that we had involved in this is that we didn't just want a script. We actually had a problem with the grading systems that we saw in the market that were based on just a script. Because, you know, at a high level expert, you know, a team lead, somebody that's seasoned, there's a human element in that. There's a human decision. There's multiple ways to solve a problem at this level. And we don't think it's healthy to turn around and press that and say, well, you can only use one of them if you want our certification. No, we want to see you do them. And that means that we've got to do some human grading. Sometimes we even got to get you on the phone and ask you a few questions to get you to clarify some things. Because we want to give you a fair shake. And if you got an idea to solve a problem and we haven't seen it yet, we want to know about it. And we're very fair with that. I think that we've got a good combination of technology mixed with human. We can scale. We feel we can scale pretty large. But we didn't set this out to be, a super growing revenue, crunching type program. We set out to create a credential that people can stand behind for another 30 years. I mean, there are several of the expert programs that are in the market I highly respect. I mean, they helped make my career, and certainly not dogging them, but I think we were happy that we didn't need to be a Me Too offer and we could actually go beyond that. So tell me a little bit about your, what kind of certs and stuff did you have prior to this? Did you ever do an expert?
I never did an expert. I did all the levels of Juniper. I did all the current levels of Checkpoint, of Cabletron, of Interisys. I actually don't have any Cisco certifications. I never did Cisco. But I did all the other vendors. Countless Wi-Fi products over the years, BlueSocket, Maru, Interisys Wi-Fi, our own when I worked for manufacturer. Obviously, we did all their certifications, firewalls. So I've done multiple of these. And I think for the most part, probably apart from a couple, all of them were multi-choice. And all of them relied on me having to memorize several books of content and then pick from, questions which were written questionable English, where you could go one or two ways. And, you had to sometimes have a guess because the wording of the question was very misleading. Won't name vendors who were the worst, but there were certain vendors where it was worse than others. And I think when we sat down again, one of the criteria for all of this was fairness. Yeah, what we saw in the other ways that people did the exam, the arbitrary, you have passed, you have failed, just wouldn't cut it. The proctored sessions, like you said, were a great example. We have maybe 2 a week where people skirt that fine line. We don't want to fail people because they made a simple mistake, or they did something a different way, or they typoed something within a high-pressure, time-based exam. Whereas if it was multi-choice, it's right or wrong. End of story, whether you would argue it or not. But with a lab-based exam, like you say, there's multiple ways that people can do this. And that proctor session and that human element, because we see every single one of those exams that comes through. We have tools to grade, we have tools to help, we have the proctor session, but somebody in the training team's eyeballs will always look at one of those sessions just to make sure that we don't screw anything up, that we don't make the wrong call for the wrong person. And yeah, people fail, people pass, and then people fall into that grey area in the middle. But everyone gets a fair shot. And again, that will move into the L7. Maybe not the proctor sessions, but the fairness of it all. And how we go about grading it, how we make sure that we are accounting for, what people actually do versus, remembering 16 different books of things that haven't been used in 15 years.
Yeah, no, and I think that's, I think we were able to achieve this when I can remember some of the early conversations we have. It's when we kind of locked in on like, what are we trying to do? What are we trying to mimic? Like anybody can write an exam. Are we writing an exam for plumbers or electricians, or what are we doing? Why are we doing this? And we really took the time to actually think through that. And I think that some of the brilliance that we did in the program was we all locked in on the idea of making this, at the end of the day, who is going to have this credential? It's going to be somebody leading a customer through a major architecture change, whatever. We see the kind of changes our customers have to do when they come over to Arista. A lot of them are breaking away from vendors they've been around for 10 years, 20 years, things like this. It's not just about, configuring BGP. There's a lot of other factors that go into that as well. We're not going to necessarily be the only vendor in the shop. So there's all kinds of different variations that we got to deal with. And we kind of looked at this and said, well, what we're trying to create is the guy on Friday evening that's going to do the turnover and add this whole new Arista environment to their existing environment and have to have, maybe high-end trading traffic or mission critical traffic going through that infrastructure on Monday morning. It's a small window. So, let's simulate that change window. Let's simulate what that person would have to go through in a change window. And yes, you're right. Sometimes, 129 and 192, did your brain get the right things? Did your brain know what to do? Yes. Were you caught, in a lot of pressure under exam? Yes. Would you necessarily make that mistake in the real world? No, because you'd have some other people that put their eyes on it, and hopefully, and that would be kind of best practice. So, we wanted to kind of simulate the same thing. It's just that this is the change window. Let us come back. Hey, talk to us about where you were going with this particular scenario. And if you at that point come out and be like, oh crap, that's not supposed to be 192, that's supposed to be 129. Exactly. Given a real world scenario, you had that last chance to verify your config, get another set of eyes on it before you push the button for production. You would have caught the same thing yourself. And as long as we can kind of see those mechanisms, then why not? Why fail somebody on that just because the script said, nope, I got it wrong?
I think over the course of the last few years, one of the common themes I've seen from doing these sessions is that people come on board and they say, before I say anything, they go, I know what I did. I did that. And you go, yeah, you did. That's it. It's pretty much job done. People go away in the calm of the following day. They sit down and think, yeah, I know exactly where I missed on that. I wonder if they'll get me. They get the email through. They realize they got caught. They come in and they just tell me literally straight off the bat where they went wrong. It's the easiest sessions to do because they knew it, but the time pressure and stuff, it just got. And that's to be understandable.
Yes. And that's the only artificial thing that we wish we could move is, people being stressed out. But we get it. You're paying a lot of money. You're coming in. You're working really hard. You study really hard. And at the end of the day, it is an evaluation. You're going to come up. You're going to be weighed and measured. And you're going to come up light or short or good. And I've had people email me. I know you've seen the feedback. The same come to you is that we have people that fell one or two times and thank us for it. Because they thank us for the fact that I just wasn't ready the first time, but now I am, and I have the confidence I can go tell people I know what I'm doing now because, the test is fair. It's hard, but it's fair, but it's not tricky. And I'm very proud that we did that because this stuff is not it's not trivial. If people could see the back end of what you do on a day by day, and the thousands of lines of code and programming, automation, and stuff that we do just to get a really complicated config, one of the most complicated I've seen in the 30 years of my career. This is the most complicated configuration time that's been in data center in the past 30 years. I mean, EVPN and BGP they're not minor protocols, they're major protocols. And so it's not a small thing that we're doing, but I think we've pulled it off in a way that's kind of fair. And we're going to get beat up, Rich, 100%. People are going to give us all kinds of grief that we are actually putting out an exam to the market that takes 3 separate days to finish it. But I think that they may find out over time that we did that for their sake. It wasn't our sake. This wasn't something we're doing to try to make it harder. This is something we're doing to actually try to make it easier and try to, we really put the concierge role that we have in this, where somebody's kind of helping you go through it, figuring things out as you go through. They're not there to take the exam for you, but they're there to kind of help make the process easier. We're recognizing that this is maybe the toughest thing that somebody is going to do in their entire career. At least that's the way I know CCIE was way back when it was the only one kind of in the market. I remember those days, and you came out. Yeah. I still know people that took theirs in the 90s, and they'll still tell you about that day. It's very vivid. It will never be out of their memory. It's the hardest thing they ever did. And why shouldn't we treat them well while we're doing that? Why shouldn't we make that less stressful if we can?
Exactly. And it's not fair to make them do something in the certification that they wouldn't do in the real life. Like you say, model this after a change window. Give people the chance to do a chunk of it in one go. It's a big chunk. We're not asking people just to turn up and set up a couple of IP addresses. We are actually asking them to build a chunk of that environment and then come back the following week and do another chunk of the environment, and then come back the following week and do even more of that environment. This is not a quick, couple of hours here, couple of hours there. You condense that into a smaller window, then that goes back to that whole problem of not being fair. It's not fair to talk and make people sit through that quantity of configuration because it doesn't match what they would do in the real life. They wouldn't do that or in the space of a day and a half, working from 6 in the morning to 6 at night, pushing changes across the production. That's not how they would do it. They would have the ability to stage part of it, go away, keep updating their knowledge, come back and carry on the next change window.
Well, I mean, yeah, the difficulty comes in the technology, and it comes in the fact that our grading method is very simple. Does it work? If it works, you pass. If it doesn't, you don't. This is not about earning points. This is not a. I remember coaching people in this. Like, don't worry about getting it all to work. If you go over here, you get 100 points. If you go over here, you get another 20. If you go over here, you did 50. You just got to get enough points to pass. We look at it very simply, going, no. If we would we pass production traffic through on this on Monday, would the change be approved, or would we do a back out and a rollback to Friday afternoon? If we have to do a rollback, you fail. If we turn it on in production, you pass. And yes, it's kind of subjective, but all this is subjective. And I think that makes it fair, because when you walk out, one, we'll put our name behind. Yeah, I don't know if I'd let the guy watch my kids, but EVPN wise, 100%, he knows EVPN. And that's the statement that we wanted to make out there in the market, is that, yeah, you can get it to work. She can get it to work. We've tested the skill set. So, a last thing I was going to say is, I mean, obviously I could tell you congratulations, because not just passing it, but helping to build it. And we did have a couple other people here. We're going to do an interview with Dennis, and Dennis was definitely a brainchild behind us with us, our expert of all experts. And I'll save that for when we go with Dennis. But, us going through it and actually doing it, I did the same thing. I think it's good for all of us to do it. We should be able to speak to what we do.
Yep. So
you still deserve the big congratulations that everybody else is giving, but also a second one for helping to build the thing. Anything that you would pass along to somebody that's watching this going, I think I can do it. Maybe I already got a CCIE and a JNCIE. This should be no problem. Any kind of advice, warnings, suggestions, just throw out a tidbit for them.
Make sure you cover all the levels. Yeah. Make sure you understand what we're going through in all the ACE levels, because nothing is off the table. Nothing is a trick. Nothing is there to catch you out. It's as plain as it was on the paper. We're not trying to make you think of something you would have done 20 years ago that you wouldn't do now. But make sure you look at what's in all of our current levels, because there's a good chance that something in those levels will come across. And we don't teach anything in there that isn't relevant to what we're doing in the current data centers and current ISPs. So focus on the now. Don't worry about how you connected your data center to the internet 20 years ago, because we aren't going to ask you that. Yeah, and if it says it on the paper, that's what we're after.
Yeah.
It's no reading between the lines.
No, I love it. So basically, that's, I said this in one of the other interviews, maybe a couple times, but this is one I don't mind repeating over and over. The blueprint for our expert is very simple. ACE 1 through 5 get you ACE 6 and 7. And, we look at it that way. You need to know how to design it. You need to know how to deal with the architectures. Need to know multiple architectures, so you know which is the right one to choose. And then you need to know how to configure them all. And really important, you need to be able to automate it too when you get done, right? So there's certain areas that we like to applaud. I had Rob on one of the interviews the other day, and I was laughing with him a little bit and saying, hey, listen, this is the beauty of it. We force you to automate some portions of the exam, and some people like Rob choose to automate the whole exam. And that's a beautiful thing, because that's exactly what Rob does for our customers every day, right? And I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, he automated the entire exam, and I think I can say this, I think he was the quickest to finish both level 6 and level 7, at least the first to return both level 6 and level 7, and having automated the whole of level 7 without, making his own scripts and his own modifications and using his own tools and Arista tools, and he did the whole lot. So big hats off to him as well.
Yeah. So no, it's a neat thing that, the blueprint for that is just simply, it's the courses, and the courses we teach the typical best practice. There's nothing on any of our courses and any of our exams, including the experts. What we do for level 6, they were There were like 100 odd RFPs that we went and pulled out of real customer RFPs and kind of shaped those into our scenarios. And so there's nothing here it's not real world. We don't teach TAC cases. We teach TAC cases. They get trained for the one-offs. Everybody else, we're trying to teach them how to deploy our stuff the right way. And that way they can kind of really get the full benefits of what we do as a company. So.
Absolutely. And these exams will evolve with that as well. So as we update and we start teaching the current best practices to the new technologies, and these exams will do exactly the same thing as well. We will keep up to date with that across the board.
Yep. Well, Rich, again, congratulations, my friend, and thanks for taking a few minutes, and so we can kind of get this message out to everybody else. And anybody listening, you're coming through the exam, you'll probably see at least Rich again before you get through it, because Rich is definitely going to see your config before you're done with it. So thanks again, buddy.
Thank you for having me. Have a great time.